Yeah, it's recording.
Good morning, y'all.
Good morning. I'm exhausted.
I don't know what today is.
He's exhausted. It's been a challenge with the weather. We barely have time to eat with all the horses. Okay.
I think it's day 9.
Does it matter? We're here. Does it matter? I don't think it matters.
We've missed 13 days.
Altogether?
Yeah. All right, so we're kind of sporadic on doing this because the weather. We've got a lot of stuff we have to maintain, a lot of animals to maintain all day long with the weather like it is. Constantly breaking water so they have something to drink. Plus we just move slower and all the snow.
So it's all good. Doing what we can. So I hope everybody's safe and warm out there. I have quite a few friends that have no water. I have friends that have no electricity. It's no bueno. So say a prayer for all the people who don't have power.
We're very blessed that we still have power.
Yeah,
and that we have heat.
It's a huge feat to keep up with everything, but we have power. So that's a big deal. All right, here we are.
Today we're in Exodus. It's Exodus 16, 17, and 18.
You okay over there?
Just trying to get my feet situated. 16, 17, and 18.
Good Lord. Why didn't you tell me I looked this bad?
There's a mirror in the bathroom.
Apparently I didn't utilize it.
You gotta wait till you're in front of the camera to inspect yourself.
I didn't think it was that bad. Anyway.
Alright,
Do you need a moment?
yeah, like a hangnail thing. Anyhow, continuing in Exodus, again, we're on the chronological plan. We've missed quite a few days.
We're not going to harp on that. We're just doing the best we can.
It happens. So, 16, 17, and 18, Exodus. So.
It doesn't want to read it. Hold on.
You.
Go ahead. You have to tap it up here? There we go. Are we ready?
I suppose so.
No, that's 15. I'll get it. Just calm down. I can hear you inside.
Exodus 16. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after they had come out of Egypt. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." Then the Lord said to Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. On the 6th day they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as they gather on the other days." So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, "In the evening you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. And in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we that you should grumble against us?" Moses also said, "You will know that it was the Lord when he gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we? You are not grumbling against us, but against the Lord." Then Moses told Aaron, "Say to the entire Israelite community, 'Come before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling.'" While Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, they looked toward the desert, and there was the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud. The Lord said to Moses, "I've heard the grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God." That evening quail came and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Everyone is to gather as much as they need. Take an omer for each person you have in your tent." The Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered much, some little. And when they measured it by the omer, the one who gathered much did not have too much, and the one who gathered little did not have too little. Everyone had gathered just as much as they needed. Then Moses said to them, "No one is to keep any of it until morning." However, some of them paid no attention to Moses. They kept part of it until morning, but it was full of maggots and began to smell. So Moses was angry with them. Each morning everyone gathered as much as they needed, and when the sun grew hot, it melted away. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much, 2 omers for each person, and the leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. He said to them, "This is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow is to be a day of Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save whatever is left and keep it until morning." So they saved it until morning, as Moses commanded, and it did not stink or get maggots in it. "Eat it today," Moses said, "because today is a Sabbath to the Lord. You will not find any of it on the ground today. 6 days you are to gather it, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will not be any." Nevertheless, some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather it, but they found none. Then the Lord said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commands and my instructions? Bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. That is why on the 6th day he gives you bread for 2 days. Everyone is to stay where they are on the 7th day. No one is to go out." So the people rested on the 7th day. The people of Israel called the bread manna. It was white like coriander seed and tasted like wafers made with honey. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Take an omer of manna and keep it for the generations to come, so they can see the bread I gave you to eat in the wilderness when I brought you out of Egypt." So Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar and put an omer of manna in it. Then place it before the Lord to be kept for the generations to come." As the Lord commanded Moses, Aaron put the manna with the tablets of the covenant law, so that it might be preserved. The Israelites ate manna 40 years until they came to a land that was settled. They ate manna until they reached the border of Canaan. An omer is
40 years?
So this is what I was reading. The longest running miracle of all time is the food that God provided for 40 years. Just to kind of break it down. 3 million mouths times 3 meals a day times 365 days a year times 40 years. Let's see. 131,400,000,000 meals served. The 40-year miracle is what that is. The longest running miracle.
40 years. They ate manna for 40 years.
I think it's pretty amazing. I think, well, you can guess you can hit the play button.
So for 40 years they traveled?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds so over embellished.
You saying it's a lie?
No, what I mean is,
Are you saying it's a lie? You said the Bible embellished?
no. What I mean is, it sounds like.
Wait a minute. Hold on, my flippy flop's falling off.
It sounds like.
Just scoot away a little bit from you.
Are you talking about before something blows up?
Mm-hmm.
No, it sounds like
Before you get struck.
when you hear that, it sounds like a tale, right? But it's not the way it's written. You know, we're missing something. Like it took them. Maybe we haven't heard enough, but 40 years makes me think, what happened in 40 years? Like, did they camp, travel, like what? There had to have been a lot going on for them to travel for 40 years. Like, it wasn't just one trip.
Well, no, they weren't just tripping around. They were. I mean, of course, it don't say here, but
you have to assume there was a lot going on in 40 years.
I would assume they'd moved to one place, moved to another place, moved to another place, but they.
How many people were there?
There were 3 million mouths to feed.
That's a lot of people. Okay, that just stuck out. 40 years. Wow. And it was the longest running miracle of all time.
Yes.
Okay.
Longest running miracle. Nothing quite equals God's feeding program for the nation of Israel in the wilderness.
Okay.
So they traveled that time in the wilderness.
All right. I get it.
Tenth of an ephah. Exodus 17. The whole Israelite community set out from the desert of Sin, traveling from place to place as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses replied, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test?" But the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What am I to do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me." The Lord answered Moses, "Go out in front of the people. Take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink." So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled, and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands." So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven." Moses built an altar and called it, "The Lord is my banner." He said, "Because hands were lifted up against the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. Exodus 18. Now Jethro, the priest of Midian and father-in-law of Moses, heard of everything God had done for Moses and for his people Israel, and how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. After Moses had sent away his wife Zipporah, his father-in-law Jethro received her and her 2 sons. One son was named Gershom, for Moses said, I have become a foreigner in a foreign land, and the other was named Eleazar, for he said, my father's God was my helper. He saved me from the sword of Pharaoh. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, together with Moses' sons and wife, came to him in the wilderness where he was camped near the mountain of God. Jethro had sent word to him, I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons. So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and bowed down and kissed him. They greeted each other and then went into the tent. Moses told his father-in-law about everything the Lord had done to Pharaoh and the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and about all the hardships they had met along the way, and how the Lord had saved them. Jethro was delighted to hear about all the good things the Lord had done for Israel in rescuing them from the hand of the Egyptians. He said, Praise be to the Lord, who rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians and of Pharaoh, and who rescued the people from the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all other gods, for he did this to those who had treated Israel arrogantly. Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and other sacrifices to God, and Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat a meal with Moses' father-in-law in the presence of God. The next day Moses took his seat to serve as judge for the people, and they stood around him from morning till evening. When his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, What is this you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge, while all these people stand around you from morning till evening? Moses answered him, Because the people come to me to seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it is brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and instructions. Moses' father-in-law replied, What you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice, and may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to him. Teach them his decrees and instructions, and show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. But select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Have them serve as judges for the people at all times, but have them bring every difficult case to you. The simple cases they can decide themselves. That will make your load lighter, because they will share it with you. If you do this and God so commands, you will be able to stand the strain, and all these people will go home satisfied. Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. He chose capable men from all Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They served as judges for the people at all times. The difficult cases they brought to Moses, but the simple ones they decided themselves. Then Moses sent his father-in-law on his way, and Jethro returned to his own country.
So, you can see in 16, I think, how the Israelites are still
Questioning.
questioning,
They're not walking
despite
with faith.
yeah, despite every miracle that's been performed in front of them.
Parted the sea.
You
They
can see
parted
their,
the sea.
you know, but I can understand that. You can, you know, there's, despite everything that's been done for you in the past, when you hit hard times, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, or you know, chapters ago, books ago, where in hard times, you tend to
Question?
question your faith. You know, if something's not going your way 100% of the time, you tend to question your faith. Or when something starts going your way, what we just talked about recently, when something starts to go your way and you become, I guess, comfortable, you reach a point to where you're not praying every day. You're not looking to God for help every day.
You know, with that
Because
being
you're-
said, but you said, okay, so you said whenever things are bad, you question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at the same time, when things are bad, that's when you pray.
It's when you're supposed to pray.
No, but that's when
And-
most people pray.
Right. But when things are going good,
They don't.
they start.
Right, and then, but it's the same thing. Just like- it's true. It's accurate because you said when things are not going your way, you question things. At the
Mhm.
same time, you pray. So I think that it's maybe
I just had deja vu.
you did.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Mm. This was in a dream one time.
Were you wearing that hat?
There you go.
Okay, so like. You're right on both Kate. Okay, so if you are more in faith, right? You may, and not,
What are you trying to say?
I don't know, I can't get it out straight. So, without sounding bad.
Spit it out.
So, if you're a Christian, okay, and you call yourself a Christian, and maybe you're not exactly where you should be, you know, like you're learning that let's say you're a Christian and you act like you're walking, no, you appear to be walking in the right way, you think you are. Tough times happen. There's one of two things that happens. Either you say, why me? I've been praying, I've been tithing, I've been everything, right? So that makes you question that would make you question God, right? If you're not walking with Christ correctly, and that is Joe. Do you hear Joe in there?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not walking in Christ or doing as best as you should, and tough times hit, then you pray. So just think about that. So tough times for people who maybe need to be brought closer to God, tough times do that. Like they pray. But it seems to me that most people that think they have a good relationship, they say, why me? I've been doing right. So it kind of seems like the trials and the hard times do better for people who are maybe not as close as they should be. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because if it brings you closer and it makes you pray and it makes you talk to God whenever you're concerned about something or you're having a hard time, that works. That's a different kind of test than if you're with God or you think you are and you question, well, why'd you do that to me? I've done everything you asked me to. So that's two different kind of tests. That person, the person that immediately says, why me? Well, they may be more counterfeit than the people that don't normally pray. Because they act as though they know. You know what? Does that make sense?
I know you about to knock his table loose. Yes, it makes sense.
Anyway.
I think so. So from 16, I think the takeaway is you have to continue to blindly trust what the Lord says. You know, if you have to wait His plan out. You know, like these people, they were in hard time because they felt like, as we go into 17, where it talks about their, you know, the water situation, Or actually, in 16, so where it says he provided the bread, all the bread that was on the ground and stuff like that, then people still didn't trust, so they gathered more than what Moses told them to gather. So they still didn't trust the fact that there was going to be food provided
After that. And then on
Kind of deal.
the 6th day, they were told to gather twice as much. And remember, and then on the 7th day of rest, don't gather any. They did it anyway.
Right. So the ones that went out to gather more on the 7th day, there was none for them.
Yeah.
So, 17 is kind of the same thing.
Milkface is about to talk. Hello, Joe Milkface.
17, basically the same thing. They're sitting there and
Hold on, I gotta let him out. You can like tell a joke or something.
I don't have any jokes. I've only got dirty jokes. They probably wouldn't be appropriate for Bible study. Oh, here's one. What do you call a lot lizard with a mattress strapped to her back? Owner operator. Not appropriate. Sorry. That's the only kind of jokes that I know. I don't know clean jokes. But anyhow. I told a dirty joke. It was not appropriate, but I told it anyhow.
Okay.
Should probably edit it out,
But you're not going to?
but I'm not going to.
Okay.
Anyhow, so in 17 where it talks about the water again, they still didn't trust that something was going to be provided for them. But maybe I can understand, because from what it talks about here, it talks about do you expect our kids and animals to
Die of thirst.
die of thirst? So they must have reached a point to where water was like not there at all.
Well, it had to have been a challenge. I mean,
Yeah, so there had to have been, it had to have been either like a famine. There was no water because they're in the wilderness.
well, they're in the desert.
So, it don't say how long they went without water. However, but again, another miracle happens. He takes his staff, which is the same staff that he used to bring them out of Egypt with.
Mm-hmm. It's the same staff that he
So-
jacked up the Nile with. The same
Yeah.
staff that turned to a snake. Yeah, it was the staff of the Lord.
So God said, "Strike the rock." He did, and I mean, you hit a rock, and then all of a sudden, water starts coming out of a rock. I mean, I don't know how many. Of course, I don't know the Bible that well, but how many miracles does it take before somebody? You part the sea for me to walk through. That's it.
That's what I was thinking.
That's one and done right there for me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't question anything
Yeah, I know.
after that. I mean, if I don't care what it was, I wouldn't question anything if I walked through a sea that was parted and then came back down and engulfed the ones that were trying to kill me. I mean, that's one and done for me.
That's a pretty good. That's a pretty good showing of power there.
But all the miracles before that is still water. I mean, it's still crazy. But anyhow, so 17, the water from the rock. And then also where it talks about the Amalekites, I thought that was pretty cool. I think I've seen that like in I think I've watched a movie, Moses.
Yeah, I was
And
thinking
that's where like he stood up, but I don't remember it saying like when his hands came down they started losing, but when his hands
that was
came back up.
well.
I
That
don't
was the
remember.
big. That was one of the major parts of that battle. That was because he had so much power. This is Cole.
But I mean, that's again shows the power of God. You know, working through someone. You know, using,
Or more so, how powerful following God and the conviction of Moses and the
well,
people.
you know, I don't think.
Because I mean, that was, imagine.
I think, but and I could be wrong, but I think at times even Moses still questions.
No, but
Yeah,
I meant at this point,
Right.
what they did in order to save the lives of the men fighting. You know what I mean? To hold his hand up. Can you imagine what it must have been like to just come together to help to get one staff in the air? I mean that gives me chills.
Yeah. So I mean that's.
Are you going to read your footnotes?
Yeah, I will. 18, where it talks about Jethro. I think the message, what I kind of get from that, is delegate. You have to learn. You have to learn to delegate. You know, you can't. But I think, from what I understand from that, Moses didn't pray. He didn't pray for that. You know, he didn't pray to God and say, "Hey, if it's your will to me just to delegate all this stuff," kind of deal. But
Yeah, that stuck out to me, that like he took that advice from Jethro,
yeah.
right? And at no point in time did I hear the reader say that he kind of talked to God about it. It
Right.
was just,
So-
if so, they skipped over it. It seemed to me like Jethro said, "Hey, look, you can't continue to do this. This is a good idea," and he took his advice without asking. So that stuck out to me.
You know, and I think that does kind of show that, you know, God can speak to you through other people.
You know what that makes me think about? That makes me think about, you know how people, Fuzz? Hey, probably. You know how you'll hear people say, God will provide, God will save me, you know, and then they sit and wait for it to materialize in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, although we can receive answers to problems and solutions, not out of thin air, but out of things that are brought to us in a way that manufacture the answer that we need, like a person's advice or a tool, if you will. You know, it's not. You have to help yourself, I guess is what I'm saying, with avenues that are given to you. It doesn't just manifest. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, God lays the power. You know, He lays the conviction on you, like the Scripture says, "Ready the horse for war, but the victory lies within the Lord." That Scripture in itself says, "Do this," but basically you have a part in this. You know, I can't just sit back and make it all happen by myself. You know, I'm not going to just sit back and make it all happen by myself. You've got a part to play in it, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Did I
does.
explain that right?
It does to me. But I think that for me,
Or ready the horse. I think it's ready the horse for war, but the victory lies with the Lord.
it just sticks out to me that Jethro brought a solution to the daunting task that
You talked and farted.
Would you like to talk some more, Cohinder?
I just laid down after that one.
I think that there was a solution brought. I'm not sure. It seems to me like Jethro brought a great solution, right? Whether it was something that he's supposed to listen to or not. Because I did not hear that he asked the Lord about it.
He didn't, and I think it also says in here, it mentions.
But wow, is that a lot to take on for one person, to just sit there all day long and just speak, and that's gotta be.
And like I said, that seems to be the first evidence of a court system.
Yeah.
right there. I think that's what kind of
Organized
stuck out to
governing,
me.
sort of. Yeah.
A governmental body,
Yeah.
the forming of a governmental body, right there.
Okay, now that we've rattled on, sorry.
Okay. 16, 1 through 36. Next to our need for water, our need for food is the most crucial. Again, the Israelites failed to believe that God would meet their needs. They lacked faith in God's power and still didn't understand their privileges as God's people. But God faithfully provided for them anyway, and their faith was further strengthened. This example of God's gracious provision should encourage us to seek help during the wilderness periods of our own lives, which I think that's going back to saying we were talking about times of struggle. I guess you can compare that to the wilderness times when you're kind of out on a limb and you're like wandering aimlessly. 17, 1 through 7, as we undergo the process of spiritual renewal, we may be hindered repeatedly by the same old mistakes. We have certain weaknesses that haunt us time and again. The Israelites displayed this same tendency. They rebelled against Moses' leadership just because of a short-term lack of water. To make this place a monument to the people's lack of faith, Moses named it Massah, meaning testing, and Meribah, meaning quarreling. These names would remind the people of their past mistakes and hopefully encourage them to be wiser the next time. We need to be reminded of our past mistakes from time to time in order to avoid them in the future. They always say history repeats itself, and even with, government today, no matter who's in office, I think you always have to look. You have to look at the past, what's happened in the past. The past predicts the future.
Well, I don't disagree, and so I'm going to say this and not get off on a rant, but you can't delete history.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like it, you can't delete history because you have to know where you've been in order how to evolve going forward and handle other adversities.
Right.
So yes, I agree.
You learn from mistakes. You teach your past mistakes in order to help prevent
future mistakes
from reoccurring in the future.
You got to know what you did wrong in order to learn from it.
At the end of the day, history repeats itself. It's shown time and time again. History repeats itself.
I will not.
Anyhow,
on a rant there.
17, 8 through 16, the people had just put God on trial, testing him and wondering whether he was with them. In response, God overwhelmed the Amalekites' forces in battle. In doing so, he employed an intrusive visual aid. Moses stood upon a hill in full view of the people and the battlefield. When his hands were raised, the Israelites' army prevailed. The raised hands did not speak of the power of Moses, but rather the power of God. Through such incidents, Israel was to learn that their freedom was dependent on their faith in God, not on their own strength. 18, 13 through 26, this episode reveals that Moses had a difficult time accepting his limitations and living a balanced life. Jethro gave Moses some wise and creative advice, helping him to protect himself from extensive demands of the people. But I think another message from this is don't stretch yourself too thin.
Were you aiming that at me?
But
okay.
Even this good advice did not solve this problem for Moses once and for all. His tendency to assume that God expected him to do everything shows up later on in a slightly different way. I guess in Numbers it talks about that. There Moses appears near exhaustion, just as Jethro had predicted. We need to accept our limitations and set appropriate boundaries in our own lives, maximizing the use of the time and energy we have while also protecting ourselves from exhaustion. I think that's a good message for us as a whole, because I think we both tend to stretch ourselves thin.
Burn the candles on all three ends.
I think me stretching myself too thin, happens. I mean, is pretty much with Fortis. You know, because I'm always trying to swing. I'm always swinging. I guess you could say, if that makes sense. I'm always swinging, trying to hit a home run on something, whether it be a specific course or on the new venture that we're trying to come into now with it. And you end up, it's kind of like a menu, I guess. You go to some restaurants and, you know, they've got like 50 pages worth of menu.
The smart restaurants don't.
And the more restaurants that make the money have a very short menu.
Mm-hmm.
You
It's,
know, they tend to do the
It's shorter overhead.
yeah. So I mean, there's a lesson to be a very.
I
good
did the
lesson
same
to
thing
be
with the
learned
horses, and I mean, with the rescue, I have definitely tested my boundaries, or my limitations, I should say.
there.
I'm gonna let him in while you get that ready.
Oh, let's get to it. Exodus 16, 17, 18. Mailface! I know, it's so tough out there. So tough being out there. But yeah, I think it's a very good lesson to learn, and I think that's a preamble to don't stretch yourself too thin. So, all right, here we go.
Hey Bible readers, I'm Tara Lee Cobble, and I'm your host for the Bible Recap. Yesterday, the Israelites found a great oasis that they stayed at for a while, but today they continue their journey into the wilderness. We're just 45 days out from God's miraculous deliverance of them, and they're already grumbling, wishing they were back in Egypt because the food was better. But all these complaints against Moses are actually complaints against God. Moses knows this. He has a proper understanding of God's sovereignty and who is actually the provider here. Complaining reveals our view of God and his provision. God hears these complaints, but he doesn't punish the people for mistrusting him. Instead, he promises food. Chapter 16 says the glory of the Lord appears to them in the cloud. This was possibly some sort of luminescence in the cloud or something else distinct, just to remind them, in case they'd forgotten, that it's not just some regular cloud they're dealing with. He tells them he'll give them bread in the morning and meat in the evening. I feel like I'm on the same wavelength with God here. Carbs for breakfast, protein for dinner. This bread from heaven was called manna, and though it's not clearly marked out in the text, this bread seems to serve a threefold purpose. It serves a practical purpose by feeding the people, it serves an eternal purpose by glorifying God and revealing his power, and it serves a spiritual purpose by testing the people and training them to trust God. Will they obey the rules he sets up for how and when to gather the manna? He says they're supposed to gather it every day except the Sabbath, which is the Hebrew name for the seventh day of the week. It's what we call Saturday. God's testing here addresses a lot of potential pitfalls.
Wait, what?
Will I have a scarcity mentality?
I thought that was on Sunday. I thought the Sabbath was on Sunday.
And try to hoard the manna? Or will I trust that the food will be here again tomorrow morning? Will I be willing to work twice as hard gathering a cloud or something else distinct, just to remind them, in case they'd forgotten, that it's not just some regular cloud they're dealing with? He tells them he'll give them bread in the morning and meat in the evening. I feel like I'm on the same wavelength with God here. Carbs for breakfast, protein for dinner. This bread from heaven was called manna, and though it's not clearly marked out in the text, this bread seems to serve a threefold purpose. It serves a practical purpose by feeding the people, it serves an eternal purpose by glorifying God and revealing his power, and it serves a spiritual purpose by testing the people and training them to trust God. Will they obey the rules he sets up for how and when to gather the manna? He says they're supposed to gather it every day except the Sabbath, which is the Hebrew name for the seventh day of the week. It's what we call Saturday. God's testing here
I think
I
that,
thought the seventh day of the week was Sunday.
well,
I wonder, this is where Is this where Seventh Day Adventists
I was gonna say yeah.
comes in
I
it?
think so.
Addresses a lot of potential pitfalls. Will I have a scarcity mentality and try to hoard the manna, or will I trust that the food will be here again tomorrow morning? Will I be willing to work twice as hard gathering on Friday in order to rest on Saturday? Will the food I gather on Friday be enough to carry me through until Sunday morning? Will God keep his promise to provide for me if I stop to rest as he has commanded me? The 10 Commandments haven't been given to the people yet, but God has been hinting at this idea of resting on the Sabbath since creation, and he points to it again here. He reminds people that if they trust that he controls the forces of nature, their response will be obedience. And come on, how many times has he already proven to them that he controls creation? Most recently, 6 weeks ago in the Red Sea. Then they move to a new site, Rephidim, and there's no water. But God tells Moses to strike a rock with his staff, and when he does, water pours out. Remember this moment. We'll come back to it in the days ahead. In the next scene, they're camped out in the desert when an invading army comes and attacks them out of nowhere. I don't know what kind of weapons you have access to if you've been a slave all your life and just escaped to the desert, but they probably had very little to fight with compared to their enemies. Moses appoints a guy named Joshua to put together a last-minute army real quick so they can fight back. This war is against the Amalekites, who are the descendants of Esau's grandson, so they're distant relatives. During the war, Moses stood on top of the mountain and held up his hands and his staff, and as long as he did that, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered them, they were losing. So Aaron and a man named Hur, who may have been Miriam's husband, Moses' brother-in-law,
Ben-Hur.
propped up his arms for him until Joshua and his army won. If you know any sports fans who are superstitious, they may fancy themselves as having the God-given power to win the game for their team if they only wear one blue sock and one white sock or whatever. While I can appreciate their emotional investment, it probably doesn't work like that. Anyway, at sundown, Joshua and his army defeat Amalek. And God promises to destroy the Amalekites because they attacked his people. And guess what? They don't exist anymore. We never see them again after 1 Chronicles except for one brief mention in the Psalms. After the battle, Moses built an altar and gave God a new name. The Lord is my banner. What does this mean? A banner is a visible identifier on display. Sometimes banners are hung to commemorate a victory, to serve as a reminder of the winning team. A flag is a kind of banner. So to say, the Lord is my banner, is saying a lot of things. Saying, God is victorious. I want to honor God's victory. I want to remind myself of what God has done. I want everyone to know that I belong to God. Giving God this name is an act of worship and praise, and it's also a personal statement Moses is making about his identity. In chapter 18, Moses' father-in-law Jethro steps in when Moses is working one day and gives him some advice. He tells Moses to delegate tasks to trustworthy, tiered leadership. Moses could have been like, thanks, Jethro, but I've got a direct line to Yahweh, so if I need any advice, I think I know who to talk to. But he didn't. He was humble and knew good wisdom when he heard it. Could God have given Moses this counsel directly? Of course. It seems like they talked all the time. But sometimes God uses other people as his mouthpiece. What was your God shot today? I loved seeing that God commands his people to rest, to trust him to provide. These people have been slaves with no day off, not even for their animals. They were forced to work, and it feels very unnatural to them to not strive and work. But here's just one way where God is showing them that he's a better God than Pharaoh. Pharaoh commanded them to work, but God commands them to rest. He knows how unnatural it feels to us, how much our human nature longs to earn things, to feel accomplished. But the very nature of his relationship with us is one where we are the recipients, not the earners, not the doers. He is the doer, and he says it's done. This is one reason Hebrews 4 calls Jesus our Sabbath rest. His finished work on the cross frees us up to rest, to stop striving and trying to earn his approval and favor. There's a quote from Martin Luther that I love. When he was asked what he contributed to his salvation, he said, sin and resistance. God himself has done all that he requires of us, and he invites us into his rest. I want to learn how to rest in him, because he's where the joy is.
All right, so I guess I didn't. Never really understood that the day of rest is supposed to be on Saturday, not Sunday.
I don't know.
So is Sunday the day, or Saturday
I think
is
it
the
has
day
to-
that God rested?
I think it has something to do with the calendar reference. For some reason, I think there's an.
Because if you think about it, Sunday's the first day of the week.
How?
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday,
Yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
So why do we do church on Sunday instead of Saturday?
I don't know. There's some adjustment somewhere in the calendar. We just ain't got there yet. I think for me, it really brings home today, I guess what I got out of the reading today was keep your, I think it goes back to I always pray for sight because, it's so easy to not have even with your eyes wide open looking for it, God has a plan and the path you're supposed to take. You just got to hope you see it. You know what I mean? So I pray for sight to be able to see what's in store or where I should go. And because I know there's been many a time in my life where I've been looking right at it and just didn't know it. You know what I mean? So, advice, wisdom, it's all. There was a lot in that, I thought. But for me, it was, Jethro giving him some good advice. That's what stuck out for me. I know that the Israelites are slow learners.
Apparently. All right. Again, if you stayed with this whole thing, thank you for joining us. If you have any ideas for another one, let us know. I would kind of like to change this whole format up, like you were saying the other day. Need to have like a structured deal.
We're pretty haphazard.
I
think it's endearing, but I'm not sure it's good for the.
I think you could call us 11th hour Adventists. How about that? I don't even know what Adventists means, but we do kind of things like the 11th hour. Let's do it, and we do it.
Yes, but that's your fault.
11th day Christians. 11th hour Christians.
Stop it right now.
Behind the 8 ball Christians.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we always start off behind the 8 ball at the 11th hour.
But anyway, hope everybody has a blessed day.
What is today?
I don't know.
Today's Thursday.
All day. But
hope everyone has a great Thursday. Stay safe in the snow and ice.
Safe.
If anyone needs anything, let us know. Need a Bible? Let us know. Oh! I've got an idea.
Oh no. What? Tell me. You're the one that's like, let's do something, not me.
Got an
You can
idea.
see it happening right now.
I think that we should do... What? I can't let y'all know about it because I think it'll be a surprise. Thank you guys. You have a wonderful Tuesday. What is it? Thursday.
I don't know.
You have a wonderful Thursday. Clicker thing not working. Clicker thing not working.
Why don't you just push the button?
Because I'd rather just sit back here and...
Do you remember when you were the remote for your parents and you had to go hit the button on the TV?
Yes.
Try it now.
No, I want this little clicker thing to work.
I'll do it for you.
No, don't. It's going to work. Stop.